Reason, the podcast where we dive deep into conversations about reproductive autonomy, break down stigma, and explore all things reproductive health. I'm Sriya, your host and president of the Reproductive Health Club here at Solano Community College. Today, we're kicking off our very first episode by exploring the fundamental concept of reproductive justice. Joining me today is a special guest, the reproductive health advocate and creator behind @SexEdu, a TikTok sex education platform with over 150,000 followers. She was part of a team that brought birth control over the counter this past year and was a peer educator with UCLA Sexperts after being an alumni at our very own Solano Community College. Welcome to the podcast, Sriha Srinivasan.
Oh my gosh, hi Sriya, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing this?
I'm doing just fine. I don't like the trees that are blooming outside, they smell bad.
The fish trees?
Yes, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, you haven't been a fan for like 4 years, but it's okay.
I'm allergic.
Yes, well, we're so happy to have you today here on the podcast. And today we're talking about reproductive justice. So why don't we really
my favorite
dive into what that really means and like kind of like the definition of reproductive justice?
Tell me the definition.
I mean, when you search them on Google, you're kind of met with tons of definitions from various aspects here in the world.
Whack.
But Sister Song here, which I know you're a big
Sister
fan
Song.
of, defines reproductive justice as a human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, have children, not have children, and parent the children we have in safe and sustainable communities.
This is true.
Yeah, so before that, why don't you tell me a bit more about like Sister Song and kind of like the website, why you think this definition is like credible?
So I love Sister Song. I love them. Sister Song is an organization that was founded by Black women. I want to say in the I don't know which decade, but like the late. I feel like late 1900s like exposes how old I am, but late 1900s.
Okay.
So they were founded then, and like around the time of like Roe v. Wade, and they basically realized that conversations about reproductive justice were happening without the voices of women of color and Black women specifically. So they got together in Chicago, and were like, hey, we should fix that. And they came up with that definition that you just read.
Yeah.
Loretta Ross was in the room, my queen, Loretta Ross.
Yes.
She was in the room, and they also founded the org that would later become, I forget their old name, but later become Sister Song. I have met Loretta Ross. I'm trying to think of like a good metaphor. Like, she is to repro what Mr. John Pizzo is to early college high school.
Okay.
But like if early college high school was like 100 years old and Pizzo was still at the helm.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
so that
like
gives
that's,
like a big
those are the
like
vibes.
time scale over.
I mean, like Loretta's not 100 years old. I'm just like giving you the scale.
The scale of like her significance.
I mean, like repro has existed in so many ways and in so many cultures, and birth work specifically has existed forever, literally forever. But like reproductive justice has only existed like the way that we know it today for like the last few decades, and like Loretta and the folks at Sister Song have been at the helm of that. Yeah. And like I said, I got to meet Loretta once, and she was like a queen, and she was very sweet, and I love her. And we talked about this definition, and like how she was literally like, like I just was like sick and tired of like not feeling represented in repro justice, so I like wrote this.
Wow. Well, I mean, now that we know like the amazing things that Sister Song has done, how cool Loretta Ross is, and like
she is cool.
She's just
so true.
Amazing. I hope I get to invite her or like see her one day. That would be.
She should be on this podcast. Loretta, get on the
pod. Podcast.
Get on the pod, right, Loretta.
And so, I mean, now knowing how cool she is and how cool this definition is, like,
so true.
What is like your understanding of this definition?
That's a great question. So I think this definition like really hits on like, I think when we think, when like the general public thinks of repro justice, they're like the ability to get an abortion. And like obviously that's a part of it. That is you or whoever choosing like when to have a child, but that's not all of it. Like repro justice is so much more intersectional than that. And so repro justice like is this umbrella that includes, you know, like being able to have kids and like being able to parent those kids sustainably and like having control of your own body in like a medical setting, or like having control of your own body, like period, getting to make like the right decisions about your health. Like it's not just about like, for example, we'll talk about this later, but like access to certain medications, like it's not always about abortion. It's always like it's also just like you have an ectopic pregnancy and like you need health care. So like I will digress for now because we're gonna yap a lot, but that's what I think.
I don't know. I think you like define it in a really like cool and inclusive way.
Did I now?
Yeah, you did.
Wow, thank you so much.
You did a really great job in doing that. And so, I mean, part that you really highlighted was like the aspect of like just being able to have control over your own body.
So true.
And I think that that's like super important, especially within this terminology that Sister Song provides us with. It's just like you want to be able to control like what you do with your body. Like you wouldn't want somebody controlling you like you're a doll, telling you to do this.
I do not want Ron DeSantis to have control over my body.
Yeah. So I mean,
sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry.
I just don't want anybody to be able to be like, you can't go to that clinic. Like
That's so true.
Would never want that to happen. And so like we're lucky enough to live in California where that isn't like the case most of the time.
I mean, California has
its own
room to improve.
But luckily,
we have some room to improve.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so much improvement within California itself, but looking at like across the entire state, like the amount of like control that's already on people with their reproductive health is like absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And so like I think we've understand kind of like the overall gist of this definition, but I really want to like keen in on like the individual parts of the definition because like we've seen how broad it is.
Yeah.
And so like the first part, the last part of the definition states parent the children we have in safe and sustainable communities.
True. It's so like my favorite part of the definition.
Tell me about it. Why is it your favorite part?
Oh my gosh, because it's the most forgotten.
Okay.
Because like not no one, I'm being so dramatic. Many people, again, like think that reproductive justice is, I can go get an abortion. But like it's also like you can have that kid if you want to. You know, like it's not the illusion of choice. Like I think being pro-choice is not just you can get rid of a kid, it's you can actually have a child. And so I love the parent, and I love this part of the definition specifically because I think it really points to the intersectional nature of reproductive justice. Like for repro justice to exist and succeed, it must be intersectional in nature. And when I think of that, I think of, because I have a public health background, I think of the 5 social determinants of health. Do you know what they are, Sriya?
Why don't you tell me about them?
Let me educate you. So if you take what?
That's what you're here for.
That's true. That is what I'm here for. That is my role in your life. If you take like Public Health 101, maybe if you get out of your pre-law hole and explore the rest of the world, you'll learn that the 5 social determinants of health are economic stability, education access and quality, healthcare access and quality, neighborhood and built environment, and social and community context. So what do you think when you hear economic stability?
Economic stability. Well, if we're looking at like an overarching like broad span in economics, like we're obviously not economically stable even within California. We're in like a budget deficit, and so like that's kind of what I see as like we're not able to get our things together. And so how are we not able to get our things together?
Are we really in a budget deficit?
Yeah.
I know that. Oh. And oh.
And so like
sorry, that was so ancient of me.
Anyways, we can't even get our things together. How are we going to get other people's things together? Like, how are we going to support the actual community members in this day and even just broad span? And so, like, when I think, like, economics, like, I just don't think we're supporting the people that we need to be supporting.
Who should we be supporting?
I think people who already, like, through systemic, like, just discrimination, who are already probably like more suffering in terms of economics, like those are the people we need to be supporting more. People who have like reduced options or like not the ability to like prosper in a way because of those kinds of systemic discriminatory practices. And so like that's kind of like
discriminatory practices. What discriminatory practices?
Well, like I can give like somewhat of an ideology or like
give me the bird's eye view.
Okay. So, like, say you're going to, I don't know, to go get a job.
Oh my gosh, bro, the job market right now is so bad, bro.
Right, AI, whatever it might be. those kinds of things, right? There is a woman of color, right?
We're women of color.
We're women of color, right? We're going and we're trying to get this corporate job office, trying to pay the bills, right?
Yes, the bills need to be paid.
And then we have a white man who has a family.
I'm just kidding.
Lives in a suburban house.
Okay.
Who's the job offer going to go to?
I mean, like, hopefully me. No, I'm just kidding. I get what you're saying. I think you're pointing to, like, unconscious bias. And yeah, like, I was just reading a study the other day. It's so unprofessional of me. Like, I don't even remember the author, but I was reading a study because, like, as a girly does, like, I'm on the like baby name forums because I think they're hilarious when somebody's like, I'm naming my kid apple, orange, banana, and you're like,
Apple?
That is not parenting your children sustainably. Anyways, so I'd be on those forums, and so I'd be like, oh, you know, like, we have unique names. Well, you don't. Not in the Indian community, at least.
Yeah.
But I have a unique name. You're welcome for that,
I don't have
BT
a H.
Dubs. That's true. Anyways, I have a unique name, and I was looking at the study, and it was saying, it basically the findings were that if you had, like, a Eurocentric name, like a specifically like, white-sounding name, you were way more likely to get an interview than your peers with, like, ethnic-sounding names. Like, they had, like, Tom and, like, Bob, like, they had, like, those names, and, like, Amy and Elizabeth, and, like, which also biblical names, so, like, there's a little bit of, like,
I mean, that's why some
Indian
suspicioso parents, like, name their kids those names.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if you had a name, specifically black-sounding names, like Shaniqua, like, yeah, they were getting less interviews with, like, the same resumes. Yeah. So I think, like, that's definitely, like, what you're talking about in terms of, like, economic stability, like, even just, like, being able to get the same opportunity, and, like, the wage gap.
Yeah.
The wage gap. Oh my God, have you been watching Caitlin Clark? The WNBA basketball player?
Oh, sorry,
my gosh,
guys.
bro. The wage gap made me think of her because she's so slay, and she's, like, I think she's the highest paid person in the NCAA period right now, which, like, as she should be, because she's, like, arguably the most talented standout player in the NCAA right now.
Yeah, I think, like, we've, like, highlighted just, like, one aspect of, like, that economic disparity that exists, and that's just, like, and, like, you see that just in general day-to-day life, too.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you just, like, walk around, and people who are, like, respected more are, like, the white folks versus, like, if I were to walk into somewhere, like, someone's gonna be following me around in, like, a store or something. Like, that's kind of, like...
Who's doing that?
The aspect of it. Any commercialized market that exists.
Who's doing that? Give me their ID.
But yeah, that's kind of like the examples that, like, I initially think of.
Okay, what about education access and quality? Oh my gosh, where are we right now?
Solano Community College. I mean, like, we have our own stories about, like, economic access.
Yeah, we're biased, bro.
Biased completely.
We're chilling. This college is chill.
Yeah, like, this, just, like...
That's, like, a good thing. That's, like,
really good.
I think we had, like, we were literally, like... I was gonna say 16. You're not even 16 yet. We were literally, like, 15 years old, like, kicking into, like, a political science class.
Yep.
Getting our little credits.
And your associates, like,
Easy.
things like that. So, I mean, like, for us, we have, like, great economic access here in Solano County, at least.
True.
And so, like, that's the scope of here. But, like, I still would try and, like, I want to highlight that there are still those, like, educational, like, you're not able to access those.
I mean, I think especially after COVID, like, you're a COVID kid.
Yeah, I mean, our education was, like, at least for the high school aspect of it, like, or not high school, pardon me, I was in middle school when COVID happened. But, like, just, even, like, education, that also comes with the social aspect of education, too. And, like, both of those things are whack. Like, I didn't learn a single thing my 7th grade year.
Boo.
I mean, I did the homework, but was I actually learning anything? No. Like, be for real. What did you do your senior year of high school?
I made my TikTok.
Yeah, but, like, did you learn, like, through the school stuff that was provided to you, did you gauge anything from that?
I didn't go to class.
Exactly. Caught red-handed. Anyways, that's what I'm saying is, like, there are still those economic, like, just, like, inaccessible access to information.
True. Okay, healthcare access and quality.
Oh my
She's
gosh.
kind of sus.
I mean, in like a lot of ways.
Like, we have some of the best healthcare in the world, but like that means nothing if people can't pay for it. Can't go get healthcare. Like, that means nothing.
I mean, like, even, like, just going for, like, a simple, like, doctor's visit, like, you will go, and then they will tell you to go here, go there, go after that, and they won't tell you the price point on that.
Yeah.
They'll just say, you need this.
They want their kickbacks.
And so, like, it just puts you into this, like, downward spiral of, like, oh, I have to keep going to these other doctors, and the bills just keep going up and up and up and up and up,
Yeah.
and you just don't know what to do about it anymore.
So true.
And, like, we highlight, like, we have healthcare, we have this, we have that, but, like, it doesn't even work.
Even, like, I called, like, the free clinics in the area for something. Like, I just needed a shot. And, like, most of the free clinics I called... No, all of the free clinics I called in Solano County that took patients without, like, very specific Medicare policies were like, we actually don't have the bandwidth to take on more patients right now. And I was like, oh, great. So, like, what are people supposed to do?
Like, there's just, like, never a response. Even, like, if you find a clinic, like, if you find one that's available, then, like, half the time people don't even know that one exists.
Yep.
So, like,
True.
I just think overall, in terms of, like, healthcare, like, there is way too much that we could be doing better that we just are not looking into doing.
True.
But, yeah, those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Okay. Neighborhood and built environment. We can't say none. We're from Green Valley.
Yeah, I think it would be better to have, like, somebody else who might be living in a different area.
I'm not good enough of a guest for you.
Well, okay, you went to LA. Like, what was the difference between
okay,
that and that?
I lived in West LA.
You lived in Westwood.
That I did.
Okay, so you lived with, like, what are not Burbank people.
Beverly Hills.
Beverly Hills kind of
gals. Yeah. I was like a walking.
A sorority girl.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you lived with that kind of crowd, and so like I don't know.
The kind of crowd.
I mean, you were just in that environment.
Okay.
So like, but you did change from different kinds of neighborhoods.
Oh yeah, I never lived like we always have been very privileged to live in like nice places.
Like even Marin,
even Fairfield is like very economically split. Like you can tell. You like drive
this side, this side.
Yeah, you can tell like where the economic disparities are. And like Solano County literally has Vallejo, which is like considered one of like the most dangerous cities in America, which arguably is just because there's a high percentage of people of color in Vallejo. But you didn't hear that from me. Oh my goodness gracious! I'm so sorry.
See, even Syria thinks so, guys.
If you had Loretta Ross as a guest, she wouldn't do this to you.
Loretta Ross should become a guest on here then, maybe.
Yeah. I can't hear you.
Sorry. Loretta Ross should be a guest on Repro Through Reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yup.
Anyways. So that's like my opinion on like the neighborhood aspect of it. Like I just think it's so diverse of a thing. Like at least where I've lived, which is like just Fairfield at like
Squarefield.
It's good points.
Oh my gosh, do you remember the Solano Town Center jingle?
What was that one?
The one
I know the advertisement.
The song. What is it?
I can't think of it.
Okay, if you think of it, you have to like
sing
it. It was like
Solano Town Center. I really can't think of it anymore right now.
Solano. Okay.
Anyways,
social and community context.
So what?
Social and community context.
Social and community context.
Yeah. That's like, are the girlies kikiing with you where you live? Like,
do we get interaction? Like, is it easy to interact?
Yeah, like, do you live in, like, a walkable city?
No.
No, we do not.
No, we don't.
No, we do not.
I
can't even walk to Solano.
Like, things just aren't accessible. Like, if you don't have a car, you ain't getting anywhere.
Yeah, like, even, like, that is one criticism I have at Solano, which, like, I wonder if, like, a certain, like, student trustee could do something about it. But, like, there's no clear walking paths into Solano. Like, if you're walking from like the Hamburger Hill, like I-80 side, and you're like walking on the sidewalk, there's like legit,
you can't.
It's just anywhere. Like this giant road where cars speed in at like 50 miles per hour.
And ECHS
there's no
walking on it.
Yeah, and there's like no walk. There's no sidewalk. Like it's so unsustainable.
Yeah, I think.
Like even if you live within walking distance to Solano, you cannot safely walk to Solano because there's no sidewalk.
And the lights. I don't think the lights here, especially.
Yeah, I agree. It's not well lit enough. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's...
that's just here, too. Like, we don't even see that, like... If we go to anywhere else, any other campus, maybe they're doing a better job of it. But, like, overall, like, in the U.S., we are not a walking city. You need a car. Well, yeah,
because the car lobbyists got to everyone.
The car. And we just, like, we get more profits out of it. So, like, probably the reasoning for that, too.
People, not profits. People, not profits.
And so, I don't know. I just, like, think that if you don't have a family who can, like, afford gas, if you don't have a family who can, like, give you the access to, like, those kinds of resources to get to places, like... You're not going to be able to live that social life that you want to live.
True.
But yeah, that's my
opinion
on it.
Do you think we have talked about parenting the children we have in safe and sustainable communities? Do you have any? Whoop. But you're a child. Like, you don't have anything else to say?
I think...
at Solano Town Center.
You were also a child.
That's crazy. You were also a child.
Yeah.
You know, everyone was also a child.
Yeah, but you were recently almost.
No, I was not. No, I literally was not.
Are you considering 16 not a child?
No, I'm. What? You are currently a child.
Yeah. As a child, when we're thinking about parent the children we have in safe and sustainable communities, as the definition states, like, I think it really just depends. As a child, I feel like I live in a safe community because I live in Solano County. But, like, someone else, like, even just in my neighborhood, might not feel like they live in a safe, sustainable community.
Real.
So it really just depends. I'm fortunate enough to live in that kind of area with access to kinds of, like, education and resources that are needed. But, like, I always have to think about, like, what may someone else be living in, too. So that is my opinion as a child.
Spit.
Yeah. So I think we've gone over, like, those 5 things. We've gone over just a ton of, like, things.
Social determinants of health.
Social determinants of health. Okay, public health, girly. Got it. Anyways.
Gosh, pre-laws are so annoying.
Anyways. So the next part of, like, keeping on going back with Sister Song's definition about reproductive justice, the next part is about have children and not have children. What are your thoughts?
I think certain children are overrated, but I mean, this is kind of the, like, this is where everyone's like, abortion. Like, this is kind of where it's like,
that's like the divide.
I mean, it's abortion, but it's also, like, contraceptive access. Yeah. Look at my water bottle is, like, cracked. It's dying. Free the pill. I
mean, like,
free the pill.
I'm glad that you, like, list out, like, the idea of, like, this have children, not have children, because every single time that someone asks about reproductive health, right, like, at my school, they're like, oh, what's your opinion on, like, abortion? Like, that's their first question.
What is your opinion on abortion?
I think pro-choice. And that definition, I think
what does that mean?
Go into what that means.
Yeah, what does pro-choice mean?
And so, like, in pro-choice, it's like that, literally what the definition of Sister Song says is, like, have children and not have children. Like, you can, if you're not in a place, if you don't want a child, like, you can not have a child if you don't want to. And you should be able to have that kind of access.
Yeah, for example, can you imagine, like, Sriya as a parent?
Me?
Yeah, that'd be scary.
Yeah, if I were to have to become a parent right now, I wouldn't want to be a parent right now.
Bro, don't let Sriya have kids,
I can't even parent myself.
No, she can't, bro.
And so, like,
she can't.
But then there's also that, like,
it's so hard.
But if I wanted
her.
to, based on this definition, if I wanted to, which I don't, I could. Right? And so that goes for, like, anyone. Like, anyone should be able to have that, like, access to, like,
you're right.
have a child or not.
Yeah, you're right.
So, like, with your experience and, like, free the pill and all the repro things that you've done.
Hashtag free the pill.
Right?
You know the birth control pill started getting shipped?
This week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the beginning of this
so,
week.
So, like,
O-pill.
they might, O-pill is, like,
$20.
What is O-pill, Sriya?
Why don't you tell me? You're the one who got it over the
you
counter.
don't know what O-pill is?
Birth control.
Yeah, but it's the progestin-only pill that just got approved for nationwide.
Then tell me more about it, because you testified to the FDA.
I'm literally doing that right now.
Okay.
O-pill, produced by Perrigo, formerly HRA Pharma, is a progestin-only birth control pill that was approved nationwide for over-the-counter use for all ages, thanks to the hard work of activists over the last 2 decades, including myself, who testified to the FDA last spring.
Wow. Amazing.
Wow.
So what does that have to do with the definition?
Well, like, if you're taking birth control, that's part of, like, choosing whether or not to have children. And if you don't have access to birth control, that's, like, not choosing whether to have children or,
So, because now Opill is, like,
so
over
eloquent.
the counter, right?
It
now
is over the counter.
You can decide. Now you can decide.
Or it's easier to decide. Like,
Easier.
you could have gone to your doctor and, like, decided. Like, birth control existed previously. Like, that's when there was 60 years of data to support the progesterone-only pill going over the counter. But it's, like, easier to decide now.
Yeah, so I think of, like, having that freedom to kind of decide.
That's why I consider myself a contraceptive activist.
Because you literally got contraceptive over the counter with the help of so many others.
Oh my gosh, our listeners and not watchers won't know this, but I have a birth control tattoo.
Really?
I can't show it on camera though because it's on my hip.
Why did you get this tattoo?
I was in DC testifying to the FDA and I just felt
Okay. We see you.
Yeah, I have a tattoo.
But like, even with like this specific definition, right? Like you're talking about like this birth control access too. Like people don't even know the kinds of access that they have to like contraceptives. Some
like
people,
what?
Like when I had a
there's condoms on campus.
Yeah, when I had a tabling event here at Solano with EC for EC, which was an emergency contraceptive for every campus, who they help students like myself get vending machines that have
do we have vending
contraceptives
machines on
campus.
Solano's campus?
Not yet.
Oh my gosh, when are we gonna have vending machines?
I hope by the end of this year.
I want vending machines. Can you put Opill in the vending machines?
A Repro Health Center on April 17th of 2024 to open to provide those kinds of resources. Anyways, back on the topic of like the tabling event. When we were giving out condoms and Plan B on the table, everyone was like, what the heck is this? Like, what is this box? And so, like, people don't even realize, like, what contraceptive access is. And, like, people will just be, like, opening these random packets of condoms and, like, flinging it around and playing with it. Those are mainly high school students. But, like, people just don't even know what they they are.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that just, like, looking at that, like, definition of, like, to have children, not have children, like, people can't even think of that definition without understanding, like, the divide of, like, knowing what contraceptive usage is.
Yeah.
Like, that's
real
my envision of it.
Yeah.
But then also I wanted to, like, bring in the concept of, like, people who have the excuse of, like, religion in that sense, too. I think that's also, like, a big piece of it, too. Like, people
like religion controlling whether or not people...
Yeah. Like, I think that people try and, like, bring in this piece of, like, religion controlling, like, the idea of if you should have a child or not.
Also, for context, we're both religious, so you can't be like, oh, look at those atheists that, like, don't think religion has value.
True.
We're both religious.
I just think that there's also that, like, you can always obviously respect. You can always respect your, like, religion.
Yeah.
But you should also respect the choice of others. Yeah. And that's what I'm kind of reiterating.
Yeah, if you're like my religion, like, actually you shouldn't have birth control. Have you ever heard, I'm about to blow your mind.
Okay.
Of the separation of church and state? Oh my gosh. Dude, did you know that's, like, part of, like, the U.S. Constitution?
I can't even fathom it.
Yeah.
Our founding fathers,
I'm not even kidding. Yeah.
Like, what? Our founding fathers actually had a brain?
Well, some of them
didn't. That's anyways the point of it.
Have you seen Hamilton?
Anyways. Okay. But yeah, that's, like, my understanding of it. Like, people just want to, like, bring in that idea of religion all the time, and I think it's just, like, sometimes a hassle. But that's, like, what I think of it. Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I think you covered it.
Yeah, so that's, like, kind of this piece of, like, the have children, not have children aspect. So let's go into this definition a bit more about, like, personal bodily autonomy. What?
We're shaking our hands on camera for the listeners.
Okay.
It's like the handshake thing that we used to do when I was a part of UCLA Sexperts, my pride and joy. We'd be like, so that's us handshaking, right? And then, like, I guess this is, like, more of, like, a consent demonstration, but the, like, consent of, like, how do you like your handshakes? Your hand's pretty cold. Like, can you warm yours up before we handshake again? Thank you. Do you prefer to handshake with your left or your right hand?
Right.
I also prefer my right.
Okay.
How firm of a handshake are we thinking here?
Medium?
Okay, whatever that means. Can I tickle you?
No.
Okay, okay. Yes.
Wow.
The listeners were handshaking.
Okay.
And then a third handshake where we like try to get in the middle of like, oh, like, can I right hand? How firm? Yeah.
Medium.
So you're trying to get in the middle. And then it's like kind of like personal bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
Because it's like the consent of like, you wouldn't take somebody's liver from their body if they didn't already give you permission. Otherwise, that would be illegal and possibly like grave robbing.
Yeah.
So if you can't take somebody's organs from their body, like why can somebody not have control over like whether or not, like for example, if they want their tubes tied
No.
and they're like 25 and the doctor's like, but you're not married.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's like what you think about. Okay, with consent, I'm taking out my hand.
That's so lame. I'm allowed to say that because I'm related to you.
But that's kind of like, I mean, yeah, that's a really good visual for like the listeners out there too about like what personally bodily autonomy is.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Do you have anything else other than that? Or, like what you think about personal bodily?
I mean, I just talked about hysterectomies. Like I thought, I was thinking about like some like things that have been happening in politics recently.
The IVF case?
Well, I mean, many things, but sure, let's talk about the IVF case. What do you know?
Well, I think that in vitro fertilization and how like that kind of case.
What is in vitro fertilization?
I want to go into the science things. It's like get your eggs are taken out and then they're frozen, so later on you can decide whether or not to have a kid or not. That's basically the same.
Yeah, like they're not always, I mean, maybe they're always, I don't know the intricacies of IVF, but yeah, basically like somebody takes medication, somebody with a uterus takes medication to make it so that their body produces multiple eggs in a single cycle, basically like overstimulating the ovary, and then they take the eggs and then they take the sperm and then they like make a bunch of embryos, and especially in families where there's like a history of genetic disorders that can be like fatal if not cause like an immense amount of suffering, they will genetic test those embryos and then only implant the ones that don't carry those like horrible diseases. Yeah, that's one of the reasons of many valid reasons that like multiple embryos might be produced. And Alabama was like, actually you have to implant all of them. Which is dumb because like IVF just doesn't work like that. Like the chance of implanting a single embryo and having it survive is like pretty incredibly low. And so that's why like often they implant multiple embryos, and they have to do it like over and over again also, like multiple cycles. So yeah, like Alabama basically shut down IVF in the state.
And so like that literally cuts off the choice of
now,
so
like,
many people.
Now like people in like
can't even
rural
get
Alabama,
fertile.
like good luck.
And they have to like go to a different state if they want to
Yeah.
get that. And the price of that goes increasingly
Yeah.
upwards if
Yeah,
in that
true.
case for transportation to actually get the facilities necessary for that. And
True.
so that's not personal
lame.
bodily autonomy.
Very lame, Alabama.
Boo.
Lame.
And so like
Specifically, the
that's
Alabama Supreme Court's lame.
and that's just like one example.
That,
of, like,
well, yeah, I have more.
other kinds of why don't you go down the list?
Well, have you heard about the current mifepristone case traveling through the courts?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
I have no idea.
Okay, I'll tell you about it. So some nut jobs, I can say that because I'm a guest. Some nut
Okay.
jobs that were like, you know, FDA, Food and Drug Administration, like even though you said mifepristone, which is this medication that was developed as an abortifacient in France, they were like, even though you approved this and it's been in use for decades and like people trust it and it's safe, you were lying when you said it was safe and you suck. And they sued the FDA.
Oh, how fun.
I know, super fun because like if they win, then like what power does the FDA have in this country? Our checks and balances. What about those?
Ooh.
And so it continued through the courts, and then I got shut down somewhere. Like, I want to say this. Actually, I'm not going to say things that I don't know the answers to. But then, now it's at the Supreme Court.
You know what?
The
things
same
happen
Supreme
there.
Court who shut down Roe v. Wade.
Jeez.
And with the Dobbs decision. And I believe that that decision is happening this summer. Yeah, so the thing is, mifepristone, it should be accessible as an abortion medication, period. And BT dubs for listeners and watchers, mifepristone is not the only way to have a medication abortion. You can just take misoprostol, but that is not as effective as misoprostol and mifepristone. So mifepristone should be, accessible. Thank you. Should be accessible for abortions, but also it's used as a medication for individuals going through miscarriage. Because when a miscarriage happens, all of the tissue in the uterus doesn't always get expelled, and that's a very dangerous situation because that can lead to sepsis, aka an infection of the blood, and cause someone to die. Yeah, it's happened before. An Indian woman in Ireland died of. Actually, that was a different situation. But yeah, you can die.
Death.
Yeah, you can die from a miscarriage. So mifepristone is used as a medication in those situations. So if you make that medication illegal, now what?
More prone to death, basically.
Now what? Yeah.
Isn't it
It's literally healthcare.
And you just don't have access to it.
You just don't have access to it.
So that's a personal decision that you can't even make anymore because some people who think that they have more reign over you are just hey, you can't have access to this, and we don't have a legitimate reason for why you can't.
Yeah.
But you can't have access to it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of
ready, boo on the count of three, but not too loud. Ready, 1, 2, 3, boo. Just needed a sound effect in there.
And it's the funny thing about I always say I hate politicians, but I want to become one because I feel the politicians of today oftentimes have this reign over yeah, you have to do this way, blah 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 blah, you need to do this, blah blah blah. If you don't go with my kind of way, this is all gonna suck.
Oh my god, bro, maybe that's too controversial for this podcast, but the way certain politicians have been holding repro as a carrot on a stick for voters, because this is being recorded in 2024, which is a big voting year. The way they're elect us again and we'll save your repro rights. Well, you didn't do it before. Why would you do it now?
And
you could have codified Roe 2 decades ago.
It's even with endorsements and repro based things, it's just a tagline. People will just want to say
I care about repro justice, but then they shame somebody who's had multiple abortions. Oh
wow! So going back on your word isn't the same thing as supporting it in the first place. Yeah. So that's just what I can think of.
That's why doulas are so important, by the way, and midwives and other birth workers, because even though I care about OB-GYNs and stuff, I think personal bodily autonomy is also having support and
even the cultural versions of those the name is
doulas,
not doulas,
midwives.
There's one other word that I'm trying to think of, but
days.
Yes, some tales of a day.
Tales of a day.
That's what I'm thinking of. So.
Go follow Tales of a Day. They're our friend. They are our friend and are so just educated on the field of repro, and that piece of personal bodily autonomy. You can still appreciate your culture and realize the kinds of ways to go, and still respect the choice to decide what to do with your own body, and you can have the best of both worlds in that kind of sense. And so that's what I really think about personal bodily autonomy. I mentioned religion here, and I think of the religion piece of my personal bodily autonomy. I can still think of my religious practices too, but there's also that separation of per
the church and this kind of decision that I make with my own body. And so that's what I think about personal bodily autonomy. It's just I have the choice if I want to do this or this.
Yes.
It's exactly if you were to walk into a food place and be okay, I'm gonna choose this food or that food.
Yeah, you're picky.
It's I'm picky, and so I want to be picky about my own body too.
Oh, put that on a shirt.
So that's what I really want to do with that's what I think about repro, having personal bodily autonomy.
Repro.
Oh, yeah.
Repro. Okay, well, do you think California is perfect?
No.
Should I say why I don't think California is perfect first?
Why do you think California is not perfect?
Okay, well, have you heard of the DuPont Clinic?
Yes, in Vegas.
Okay, so for folks who have not heard about the DuPont Clinic, they are a clinic in Washington, D.C. currently that does late-term abortions, but they're also very intersectional in the way that they do them, and that they offer childcare and they offer nutritional support and they offer counseling and
good things.
Good things. And they had individuals flying cross country to access their care, like literally 2,000 plus miles. And they were like, oh, geez, like we need to open up a place on the West Coast. So they looked into Beverly Hills. I used to live near there. They looked into Beverly Hills because Beverly Hills, when the Dobbs decision was released and Roe v. Wade fell, Beverly Hills posted a resolution from their city council that was like, we support women. We heart abortions. Like they were basically like, we're like so safe. Like don't worry. So DuPont was like, oh great. Like y'all said that you were safe. So they put in, I want to say like millions of dollars. They got a lease. They started building a clinic, which medical equipment is expensive. So they put in a lot of money, and all of a sudden, some freaks. Went to city council, and mind you, like they weren't even from Beverly Hills. Like most of them, there were like 5 people. I think 4 out of 5 were like not even from LA. There was like one lady from Sacramento.
For the LA community.
Yeah, who like went down, or not even went down, like emailed a city council member and was like, and they like threatened them. They were like, oh, if you open this clinic, like we will have 500 people show up to protest it. Mind you, like they didn't even, it was like 4 people saying this. But city council, for some whack reason, I don't know if I can curse, so I'll leave it at that. They were like, oh my God. And they took some really suspicious meetings with these people, and they put some pressure on the landlord, and the landlord rescinded DuPont Clinic's lease. And mind you, like this is all happening in a city that like quote unquote was like very abortion friendly, in a state that quote unquote protects reproductive rights. And this is all happening, and like the city has not, like nothing's going on. Just like it's a fight that's currently going on. For listeners, go follow the Los Angeles Abortion Support Collective on Instagram, because they are posting about this fight. And yeah, like doctors agree, like doulas agree, like the community agrees that this clinic should exist, but like California's attorney general like isn't listening, because
like these certain individuals who so-called have more power,
I mean they literally don't though. It's like literally like you're not even from LA, like why are you saying anything? Like look, I personally am all for is like a little too positive, but like I respect political differences, I respect values differences. Like for example, the protesters that come onto this public campus that I don't agree with, like I'm not gonna hate on, because like you have your freedom of speech, as do I. But like if you're coming from Sacramento to go make your voice heard at like a Los Angeles based council meeting, leave.
Like if you call like if you are a constituent based in like this district and you call a different district, they're gonna be like, call your constituent person in your district, right? So like why is it the same apply?
So why would they listen?
For like someone going from
especially when like the majority of the community has come out to meetings multiple times to be like, we want this, for them to still be like, no.
I think that's just like disgusting.
Boo.
And
wait, ready? 1, 2, 3. Boo.
Boo. And I just think that, like, it's so unfortunate because we see that in, like, way too many circumstances.
Yeah.
Like...
oh my gosh, is there another circumstance of California being whack?
I think in terms of menstrual education? Question mark?
Oh, what's going on with menstrual education?
Well, I mean, this is, like, a whole situation. Just, like, if I ask the viewers, hey, what was your menstrual education like? Can they name anything? Like... you're saying like as a part of like the comprehensive sex education we got in California? I don't know, like I had a great sex ed teacher at early college, shout out, but like no, I don't really think we talked about menstrual education that much. No, I think it's like it is, I will say that it is listed in the California Healthy Youth Act to talk about menstrual education, but like what does that mean? Implementation like we never talked about like cramps or like we didn't talk about cramps, we didn't talk about period products, we didn't talk about just like what's the stigma, even like telling people without periods, like oh like this non-menstruators, like oh like this is a pad, this is a tampon, like they don't even know what this is. Like if I go to one of like my non-menstruator friends right here on this campus and I say, oh, I'm cramping so bad, they're like, oh, whoa, did you eat something weird? Like, what's going on, bro? Like, and so it's just like that understanding of like we didn't even get taught about like what more than half the population goes through. And so like that's what I'm thinking about like when I talk about like personal bodily autonomy, is like I wasn't even taught that. But like, question, how do we fix that? Well, I'm so glad you asked.
Oh my God, you're so glad I asked?
Oh my gosh, yeah, because we actually currently have a campaign going on.
What's it called?
Know Your
Period. Oh my God, jinx.
Wow, double jinx.
You have to say jinx at the same time as me to say double jinx.
Well, I
Do you want to try again? Ready? One,
okay.
2, 3.
Jinx,
double
double
jinx,
jinx.
triple jinx. Oh. Okay,
Just let
moving
me
on.
have my chance, man.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. So the Know Your Period campaign, right? It started in October 31st. We were like, yo, we need menstrual education in California schools.
True.
And so we signed a petition. We're like, hey guys, what do you think about having menstrual education in our schools? And we did that. We had tabling events here at this campus, Solano Community College. We talked to individuals about like, yo, what do you think about like menstrual education? Like,
Bay Area
did you
activism is the
ever
best.
have it? Did you ever get it? Like, what's it like? What's your experience with your period? So we had totally different kinds of ways like that. And then we finally were like, yo, this can be a bill. And so we were like, we hit up our local legislator, Miss Assembly Member Lori Wilson. And
Oh my God, did you see she got the primary vote?
Yes. Congrats to her.
Yeah, congrats, Lori.
But like we had
Yeah, you should get Lori on this podcast.
But that's a great idea too.
Oh my gosh, Lori, you should be on the pod.
You should be on the podcast, Lori Wilson. Well, we'd love to see you here. And like we were like, hey, you should take on this bill. We really like we align with your values. Like we just want you to like champion this bill.
Yeah.
And so she introduced it in February.
What's it called?
This year. It's called AB 2229.
Okay, ready? 2229.
9. You can say 2229.
2229.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm with your pun. So that's kind of like that's the bill. It would be
What would it do?
updating the California Healthy Youth Act. The
Okay.
California Healthy Youth Act currently gave us and gives students 7th through 12th grade access to sex education, and so it's helping and reiterating that term of like what does that look like, and including like
Sure.
what the definition of menstrual education is,
Sure.
like what would actually be taught in this menstrual health curriculum. So those are things like menstrual disorders, menstrual irregularities, like
Real.
menstrual products,
Whoa.
and like especially the stigma and taboo associated with the menstruation.
Oh,
And so like that's just like
we met Madame
what
Gandhi
that would
once.
do.
That's what I think of when I think of menstrual stigma. I think of Madame Gandhi
And
running
running a
the
marathon.
London Marathon, free bleeding, and like how it was news. You should get Madame Gandhi on this podcast.
You know, there's a lot of people we can get on this podcast,
Madame Gandhi,
guys.
get on this pod.
And so
We know her. We met her once. We met her at an abortion storytelling event. We should hit up her line.
There's a lot of people we could hit up for this podcast, but in terms of just like menstrual education and like the connection with personal bodily autonomy, like having access to knowledge is also another piece of personal bodily autonomy.
True.
And like right now, or like at that time before I didn't like know about this, like I can advocate for like my rights and things.
Sure.
Like I just didn't know like how to know about my period. Like
Wait,
I did not know.
Can I ask you a question? So
Yeah.
like if I really like the Know Your Period campaign, like how do I get involved?
Oh, great. So many great questions today.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, if you want to get involved with the Know Your Period campaign, you should look up SEC Reproductive Health Club on Instagram.
Okay.
Because there's so many resources that we have about signing a petition, the link to the Petition for Action Network, to send a direct email to your local legislators to support the Know Your Period campaign and AB
that's cool.
2229. And you can even talk just in general, just open up about conversations about your period to literally anyone. Like the one-on-one conversations you have with people are like the best ways to like engage with other people and just like
Real. Are we
break
having a
that
one-on-one
down
conversation
into
right
stigma.
now?
Well, it'll be broadcast to a bunch of people, but
This is so cool.
this
My
is the
sister
kind
never
of
has
individual.
one-on-one conversations with me. She's too busy.
Well, I talk about some things.
Not this long.
Yeah, this is probably one of the longest conversations in like a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's like one of the highlights of personal bodily autonomy is like the access to knowledge. Like I just want to be able to have access to like what I need to know. I talked about that when I talk about like knowing what contraceptives were. I'm talking about it here about when we're talking about like menstrual education, knowing what a menstrual product is, like
Sure.
and just like knowing things. I think that like that's the biggest thing is like I don't know how to take care of myself, but I don't know how to take care of myself. I don't have access to that information, and so that's what I really think about.
that like Know Your Period is like the future of reproductive justice.
The future.
I mean, like I think that's a lot of things. Like I think like there's still fights with, or not fights. Like there's still things to be done in like pill and like over-the-counter birth control and like contraceptive activism. Like I'd love if more options became over-the-counter. Yeah, sorry, I was giggling because I was thinking about an over-the-counter IUD option. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. That was just me giggling. I was just being silly, guys. And then, like, I know that there is research, and I was on a focus group for an eventual over-the-counter abortion medication. And I think there's a lot of work to do to deconstructing stigma around abortions, to like make those more accessible. I think these sorts of like, not to hype you up, because you have an ego already. I do think these grassroots movements that are like run by youth for youth are like incredibly important and change the future of reproductive autonomy for future generations. Like I think there's like a huge impact. Sorry, I just had to yak because I said something nice about you.
Like that.
Sorry?
You did that too when you were like in our
are you saying something nice about me?
Well, yeah, you started your own sex edu on TikTok.
Oh my god, sex edu on TikTok, go follow.
Yeah.
Plug.
And like you literally started like educating people. The first one
True.
being big about chlamydia.
You
like,
are
you
my
started
mini-me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, like that's kind of just like the idea of like the youth is the future of kind of reproductive justice.
True.
And,
I agree.
You just like there's like these people who are like running over our lives right now, these politicians who think that we can decide this and this.
It makes me so sad. Like I get like emotional thinking about it. Like I've never met somebody specifically in this position, but I know that they exist because I've seen them. Like I can't imagine like spending like a chunk of your life advocating for abortion rights and then celebrating when Roe v. Wade happened and then like living for it to like living long enough to see it fall.
Oh my god.
Can you imagine?
That
literally heartbreaking. I know.
That, like,
I know.
You like push so hard for something that you care about so much, and then
just for like our country to go backwards is like it's so heartbreaking. But like I think we have to work hard to ensure a better future for like I think I've heard it phrased as like our grandmothers. I mean like our parents are immigrants, so like not our grandmothers, but like our Americans is American women's. Well, we're American. You get what I'm saying? Our grandmothers had more rights than we do. And I think that's really sad. But I think, these fights take time. Like, I was on a Free the Pill meeting this morning, and I thought it was so amazing. They were like, raise your hand if you were at the first meeting in 2004.
Oh, wow.
And they fought for literally 20 years to make this happen. And 20 years later,
oh my gosh,
birth control's on the shelf. So these fights, sometimes, like Know Your Period, for example, has the opportunity to change the world, or change California at least, in the matter of a year. But I think sometimes also these fights take a long time. And so I think that's what I think about with the future of repro.
And even then, like, after that, like, decision is made, or after that bill is passed, like, there's so much after that. There's so much about, like, the implementation.
Y'all about to be sick of her. Wait, what year are you going to be 36?
36?
Yeah, how old are you? 20 years from now, right?
Yeah.
2040, Sriya for president, 2044.
But
I would begrudgingly vote for you.
You'd be surprised if you did it as my sister.
Yeah.
But anyways, like, on my point about, like, once that decision is made, like, there's still so much work to be done after that.
True.
And there's so much more work about, like, that's what all the advocacy that we do now initially, like, that's the only, like, we're only going to see the fruits of that if we keep putting in the work to that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really want to see with, like, the future of reproductive justice is, like, with this, new passage of bill, trying to make it as, free of cost as much as we can, like, trying to make it as accessible as we can, and finding ways of how we can educate people on, like, what contraceptives are. Like, we talked about that today. Like, what is a condom? What is an IUD? Like, what are all these different things? And then also seeing just, like, the education process, like, just giving access to people. And, like, we talked about those 5 different aspects with the public health situation of, like, these different aspects of our life, that there's so much that we can, like, improve on and see different kinds of new things that we can see progress with. And so, like, I think that's just, like, the beauty of reproductive justice, is that we see all these kinds of, like, movements and different things that we can do, but then just, like, boiling it down to, like, we just want to make the world a better place.
Wow.
The rainbow.
Butterflies in the sky. Woo-woo. I can tell prices high.
So is there anything else that you want to think about the future of repro?
No, I think you covered it.
You think? That's the future of repro. We just, like, we don't know definitive where to go, but that's kind of.
Did you ever remember the Solano Town Center jazz song? At Solano Town Center. Aww.
I don't know.
Aww.
Maybe the outro of this video can be that sound.
Okay, if
I find it,
yeah.
I will try my best to find it. But
I think that would be hilarious. And it's probably old enough that it's in public domain.
it's on YouTube.
Well, that doesn't mean it's in public domain legally.
Okay. But yeah. All right. Well, we went over a lot today, and I just wanted to say, like, big kudos to you, big thank you to Sriha for being here and joining us today.
You're not allowed to call me Sriha. What are you allowed to call me?
Akka.
That's what I thought.
And
big thanks to your Akka Sriha.
Yes.
For joining you on today's podcast.
The people who want to address you, your name is Sriha.
Well, you can call me the Queen
Sriha
XXEDU.
But yeah, well, so exactly, like, we've talked about personal bodily autonomy. We've talked about how, like, just like what Repro justice even means. But like, what if I want to learn more? Where can I find you?
I already plugged my TikTok. I don't know if I don't know if I should plug it again, but that's XXEDU on TikTok. You can find me there. You can find my other socials there. That's where I like kiki with the people. You can follow my personal if you like really love me. I don't even know how to describe my personal. It's at Sriracha, like the sauce.
Yeah.
SRI.RAC.HA. If you figure out why my Instagram is called at Sriracha, I'll give you a cookie in your DMs.
Order Girl Scout cookies.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if by the time this goes out, you'll still be selling Girl Scout cookies.
Okay. Next year, guys, support your local Girl Scouts.
Support your local Girl Scouts. Support reproductive autonomy.
Yeah, for
reproductive Ross, get on the pod.
Everything. Just like keep listening to this podcast and like
save, subscribe.
I
actually don't know how podcast promo works.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, thanks for having me on,
guys. I know. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
For just, like,
thank you.
Introducing us, like this first episode. I think it's been great.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Thank you so much
entertaining.
to our guests for listening. Thank you so much. And wherever you're listening from, wherever you're coming in and tuning in from, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, etc., just make sure to like, follow, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. We'll always be here. We'll always bring you new content here on Repro Through Reason. So tune in for our next episode. Thanks so much, guys.